Okay, we'll be in Matthew 15. And this is picking up as far as the steps of our Lord, where he was, right? So he's been a lot of things going on. This is the story. We'll read it, but this is the account where the lady who has the possessed daughter, and then the Lord almost doesn't heal, wasn't going to heal her, the little girl being possessed by a demon. And so it's a very interesting thing. And so the message, the title is a couple of things. One is just the woman who would not be denied, right? She wouldn't be denied. But also there's a kind of a sub-thought in this, and that's, can we change the mind of God? Can we influence the actions of the Lord? And so Matthew 15, and I know that the idea of can we influence the Lord's mind is not really even what's the focal point of the passage. Really, it's not, because Matthew is writing to Jewish people. The focus is Jesus being the Messiah, the son of David. But there's that side element to this. So verse 21, Matthew 15. The Bible says, "Then Jesus went thence and departed into the coasts of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast, and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. But he answered her not a word. And his disciples came and besought him." That is, in the King James Bible, the word besought is a very strong word for beg. It's the same idea of the word beseech. All right, they're begging Jesus to do something, saying, "Send her away, for she crieth after us." Now, I'm not really going to get into that really, but that is very strong language, right? These men are like, "Lord, do something with this lady. She's driving us crazy." All right? And and so, verse 24, "But he answered and said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then came she and worshipped him, saying, Lord, help me. But he answered and said, It is not meet to take the children's bread and to cast it to dogs. And she said, Truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. Then Jesus answered and said unto her, O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour." Now, in the verses here, of course, this is a familiar passage, and many of you may have heard sermons preached from this before. A lot of times it's preached on, this is preached on from the perspective of perseverance in prayer. Don't give up in praying. Pray until you get through, which is there. There's a part of it. Some of it is just preached and looked at it from the perspective of God dealing long with his children, not giving us the things that we ask for right away, but is molding and developing our faith. And there's maybe a little bit to that here as well. But I want to look at this from the contextual point of this. What is this all about? Well, why is this even in the story? What's going on here? Okay, so just real quick, a couple of lead-in thoughts is to consider is the historical context of this. Okay, and this is extremely important. So there's 4 points of connection that I want to mention quickly before we get into the other parts of the verse. Okay, the first is simply the connection with the present. All right. Verse 21, "Then Jesus went thence." Now, a lot of times when Matthew uses the word "then," it's not always in connection with a chronological order, like this happened, then this was the next thing that happened, and then this was the next thing that happened. Context helps us with that. But here in this passage, it really is after what happened in chapter 14 and in 15, then this happens. Okay, so what has just happened within this? All right, well, it all begins with the beheading. It begins with Jesus being rejected in Nazareth. Then he sends out the 12. And then there is the beheading of John. And then there's the going across the river or the lake and the feeding of the 5,000. And after he feeds the 5,000, he walks on the water in the privacy with the disciples. Okay, after he does that, then he has the discourse in chapter 15 with the Pharisees who don't like him eating without washing their hands. He gives the great discourse on I am the bread of life in John chapter 6. All of that is happening. Now, for us in Matthew, everything that Matthew has mentioned up to this point, beginning in chapter 14, all the way up to here, there's one goal in mind, and that is to show us, not us, to show the Jewish people, when he's writing this, that Jesus is the Messiah. Now, so having said that, this story is extremely Jewish. Everything about what we're reading is screaming Jewish people. Israel, Israel, to the Jew, to the Jew. We don't have the exact date for Matthew when he wrote the Gospel of Matthew. Okay, there's differences of opinion. All right, some say maybe AD 55, AD 55, AD 60, 63, something like that. Those are the people that are earlier. Those who reject kind of the authenticity of the Bible will say it came around AD 80, AD 90, maybe even after 100 AD. Okay, I believe it was earlier than that, and I think there's good reasons to support that. Now, I'm saying all of that to say, when Matthew wrote this, the church is growing. The church is new. Christianity is new. It's only by word of mouth. Paul has been preaching. A few miracles are being done. People are talking about this man named Jesus. Okay, the Gospel of Mark has already been written in all likelihood. And so Matthew is now writing a gospel. Matthew is giving his perspective on the life of the Lord. And Matthew is writing to Jewish people saying, listen, Jesus is our Messiah. Well, if Jesus is our Messiah, then why is he not the king? Well, I'm going to tell you why. This is what happened. Here's all the proof that Jesus is our Messiah. And then here's the rejection by the Jewish people. And this is why he is not the king. And so that's the connection with the present. If you look at verse 21, the Bible says, then Jesus went thence and departed into the coasts of Tyre and Sidon. Now here's the connection with the past. Now this is important. And the reason this is important is a lot of times when we read about this area, Tyre and Sidon, this is along the Mediterranean coastline, right? And it's along the coast, and this area is idolatrous. It is controlled by Gentiles at this time, but this is part of the land that Jacob had promised to his son Asher, to Zebulun in Genesis 49 and verse 13. He promised this area to his son Zebulun. Now, why is this a big deal? The reason it's a big deal is that although it is controlled by Gentiles and had been under the control and dominion of Gentile power, it's still a part of the inheritance and the covenant that God made with Israel. And again, as we get into this is why this is so important, why Jesus ignores this woman. Help me. He just ignores her. Well, that's not very Christ-like. That's what we would say. We ain't acting like Jesus, ignoring people. That's not what I would, because this is about the Jewish area. And so he's going to a place that, although is heavily populated with Romans and Gentiles, it is still within this covenanted inheritance promise that God made. And so this is the connection with the past. It's a part of Jewish territory. But notice the connection with this place. Now he's going to Tyre and Sidon. Okay, now Sidon is about 20 miles north of Tyre. Tyre is about 30 miles, I guess that would be west of Capernaum, where Capernaum and Gennesaret, where the Lord was. It's going to take them about 14 hours walking, okay, just from one place to another to get to Tyre, and then 20 miles from Tyre up to Sidon. It's along this coastline. He's not all the way in Sidon. He's not all the way in Tyre. He's along this coastline, this coastal area, okay? Now, but so what is the connection with the place? Again, so most you say, what is the big deal? The past. Okay, so God promised it to Zebulun. He promised it to Israel and the 12 tribes. That's great. But what's the big deal about the place? How many of you remember a king by the name of King Ahab in the Old Testament? Okay, King Ahab. King Ahab was married to one of the most, probably the most wicked woman that has ever lived, okay, to Jezebel. Jezebel was from Zarephath. That particular city is in this coastal region. Now, we don't know if Jesus went to the city where Jezebel was from, but this is that area. But what is so significant about Elijah going to the city of Zarephath to the Zidonians? The reason that's important is because that is where God had a Gentile widow woman meet the need of Elijah for 3 years with the oil and the meal, raised their son back from the dead. Now, you say, Brother Dan, what is the big deal about that? Well, the connection with this particular place is that it was, although it was under the promise of, for the Jewish people, where Jezebel was from, it was full of idolatry. This place is an idolatrous place. It is evil. It is wicked. They worship false gods. I mean, it's really just an evil place. Okay, and so to the Jewish people, when they're reading this, they're seeing Matthew making all of this connection with all of the stories, all of these accounts. Their minds are going to go back to the past. This area belongs to Jewish people. This is Jesus, the Messiah, going to the Jewish regions. The place is where Elijah went, raised the widow woman back from the dead. We know that she's, Gentile. We know the evilness that is taking place there, but God is working. So the reason this connection is important, again, this is where Jezebel is from, is extremely idolatrous. They were rejecting Jehovah, worshiping Baal. Okay? So the connection, that although it is promised to Israel, still a very idolatrous place. Then lastly, notice the connection with this particular person. All right, it says it is a woman out of this coast. Now, Elijah was sent to this city in order to help. Okay, so why did God send Elijah to that city? Well, he sent Elijah to the city to take care of the prophet at the time, yes, on the surface. But it goes deeper than that. He sent Elijah to this place, took care of him to reveal Jehovah to all of Israel. And that happens on Mount Carmel, sending down the fire. That was sort of the icing on the cake, okay? While he is there, the woman helped Elijah, and then Elijah eventually helped her by raising her son back from the dead. But ultimately, the ministry of Elijah was for the Jews. Now, the same thing is happening here. Now, as we're going to see this, the Lord did not go to this city primarily to help this woman. I know that may sound odd, okay? But the way Matthew is showing this to us, that's not why he's here, okay? But while he is there, he's going to help this woman. Just as the woman that Elijah helped was trapped in her idolatry and in her devil worship, this woman that we're going to read about, she is trapped by the devil who has possessed her daughter. As we're going to read, this woman was helpless and needed help just as the woman in the Old Testament needed help. And so the point of Matthew revealing all of this to Israel is so that Israel will be reminded of her sin. What was the sin of Israel in the days of Elijah? Rejecting Jehovah. What is the sin of Israel in the very days of Jesus? Rejecting Jehovah, rejecting Jesus. And so Matthew is writing this wonderful story, making this connection for us to see, okay? God could have sent Elijah to a Jewish widow, but God did not. He chose a Gentile to reveal his rejection, to reveal their rejection and the rejection of their sin being rejection of God. So here in this passage, although Jesus is reaching out to the Jews and turns to this woman and tells her that she has a great faith, he tells her, says, you have a great faith. This is as the Jews are going to read this, what Matthew is writing, and I know we kind of missed this 2,000 years later, being Gentiles, not really having Jewish thought, but when the Jews are reading this, there's only 2 people in all the Gospels that Christ ever said had a great faith, and they were Gentiles, never to the Jews. Now, that would have been just a slap in the Jews' face, that their Messiah looks at them and says, y'all don't have the faith that the Gentiles have. And so Matthew is writing and is making this connection. Now, very quickly, notice, if you would, humanity's cry. Now, we come to verse 22, and behold, a woman of Canaan came out of the same coast and cried unto him, saying, Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with a devil. But he answered her not a word. Yeah, wow. Now, this is very interesting, right? So we notice humanity's cry. This cry made by this woman is the cry that all humanity makes, and that is this: God, have mercy on us. And you say, well, we don't see humanity is not crying after God like this. No, put them in a situation where they can't get out of it, and they will. They'll start praying real fast. That's why you hear a lot of times, foxhole religion in World War II, men in the foxhole, dear God, okay, save me, I'll believe in you now. Well, when the back's up against the wall, that's what happens. Okay? And that's what's happening here. But this is the cry of all humanity. Deep down on the inside, every person at some point looks up to the skies. I mean, I don't care if they're atheists or not. There's something inside of us crying out, God, whoever is out there, have mercy on us, help us. Whatever, okay? So now there's two thoughts here. Notice her plea. First, notice her plea, and now her plea is the same plea as of all humanity. When they realize the seriousness of the situation that they are in, they cry out for mercy. Her daughter is grievously vexed by a devil. Grievously vexed. I mean, not just vexed, but grievously vexed. I mean, greatly troubled with a devil. So her plea is, we need mercy. We need help. Oh Lord, help us. Have mercy. So her plea, but notice her plight. What is her plight? Her daughter is in need of spiritual healing. Now, what is the big deal about this? Well, the big deal is that her daughter is possessed by a devil, but the bigger deal is there's nothing she can do about it. This is a spiritual issue that needs spiritual help. Now, every situation, right, when we're sick, I can't heal myself. We have to pray. We do seek God in prayer to heal us. But we take medicines, right, to heal the physical body. My heart rate is high, so I can take medicine to bring my heart rate down. So there are things that we can do to fix the situations often that we are in. We may still pray about them, but there are things that we can do to change some of those situations. There's no doubt. But here, this woman is in a situation, and her plight is this is beyond her control. This is beyond anything that she has power to do. I can't just pop a pill. I can't just get a little bit more sleep. I can't take 2 of these and then call the doctor in the morning. I am really in serious problems. This is beyond anything that I can do. I cannot change the situation that I am in or my daughter is in. This is the cry of humanity. God, help us, because I can't change this. This woman is desperate. She's desperate. 23, though, he ignores her. Doesn't answer her word. Well, Brother Dan, what in the world? Now, I want you to notice number 3 on the handout. And that is the humiliating conversation. This is tough. This is troubling, because when we read this, it's like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense, right? What in the world is going on? This is very interesting. Now, this is very important on a Jewish level, and I know I keep saying that, but that's what we're going to see is happening. This is important from what may be referred to as a dispensational perspective. And what is that? And that is that God works in different ways with different people at different times. And He does here. Now, at the beginning, I mentioned this in passing, and it's on the title, even on the YouTube video. Can we change the mind of God? Okay. Well, I'm not going to get into a deep philosophical thing. All right, that's not the point of this. But when we read this, God's going to do one thing, and yet the woman's persistent. God does something different. Okay, so let's look at this. Notice her approach. So we're going to take the verse 22 and 23. Let's look at her approach. How does she approach God. How does she approach the Lord? Now, this is very important. She says in verse 22, let's just read what she says, okay? She says, "Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou son of David. My daughter is grievously vexed with a devil." Now, notice the recognition. Now, what does she recognize? Now, this is extremely important. She is confessing that she sees him as Lord, the Son of David. Now, this is very revealing. The woman sees Jesus as the Lord, as the Son of David. She sees him as the one who is the authority and also the one that is anointed. Now, when she uses the term Lord, okay, a lot of times when that term is used, it is used in reference to the individual seeing Jesus as God, but that's not what she's doing here. She's using the word Lord. Not that she's confessing that he's God. She may see him as that, but when you read the rest of the context, we understand that she is simply declaring that he is the master. We see that down in verse number 27, when she says, "Truth, Lord, yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table." So she is recognizing that he is Lord, he is master. Sure, that he is Lord, he is master. Maybe she sees the fact that he is God in the sense that he can perform miracles, but within this context, she sees him as the Lord, the Son of David. That's what is so key. Now, what is the idea of the Son of David? The term Son of David is a term that is used to reveal the kingly position of Jesus. Matthew establishes this in Matthew chapter 1. So when she says, "Lord, you are the Son of David," she is recognizing that Jesus is in fact the King of Israel. Now, she is not a Gentile. I'm sorry, she is not a Jew. Mark tells us that she is a Syrophoenician woman. She is from Phoenicia, which, from Syria and the Phoenician. So she is not Jew. She is Gentile. See, she is as Gentile can be. Okay? There's no Jewish blood in her whatsoever. But she, as a Gentile, she is recognizing Christ as the King of Israel. He's the one with the authority, and he is the one that has been anointed. Okay? Number two, though, and this is all in her approach, we see that recognition, but notice the rejection. Now, although she confesses that Jesus is King of Israel, the Son of David, in verse 23, but he answered her not a word. She is being ignored. She is being rejected. Jesus Christ is walking away from her in such a fashion that she starts going to the disciples, and she's, for lack of a better word, pestering them, pulling on them. So much that the men say, "Send her away, for she crieth after us." Lord, at least respond to her and send her away. If you're not going to help her, then tell her to leave us alone. Just send her away. So the question, though, is why is she being rejected? Why is she being ignored? Okay? And again, it's all very, very Jewish here. Very important. So we're going to answer the question in a moment. Why is she being rejected? Why is she being ignored? Secondly, or letter B on the PowerPoint handout, notice his appointment. So we look at verse 22. "O Lord, Son of David, my daughter is grievously vexed with the devil." Verse 23, "But he answered her not a word. Lord, send her away, for she crieth after us." Notice in verse 24, "But he answered." Now, who is he answering? He's not answering the woman. He's answering the disciples to their statement. "Lord, send her away because she's crying after us." So then the Lord turns to the disciples, not to the woman. Now, I know it doesn't say to the woman, but he's answering the statement that was just made, which was made by the disciples. And what does he say? "I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel." Notice his appointment. Now, what does he say? So the Lord turns to the disciples and he gives them an answer. "I'm not sent to her, but I'm sent to the lost sheep of Israel." In other words, I did not come to this place to help the Gentiles. I have come to find those sheep of Israel that are lost. those that have been lost, those that are drifting away. You say, Brother Dan, this is very strong. Okay, it is. But this is not the first time that the Lord has done this. Now, we preached on this, it's been probably 6 or 7 months ago now. It's been a long, no, this has been probably a year ago, over a year ago. Turn to, just so that you can see it, turn to Matthew number 11. Matthew 12. Matthew 10, excuse me. Matthew chapter 10. Okay? But the Lord has already made this statement. He's actually already sent the 12 apostles out to do something very similar. Now look at Matthew 10, verse 5. All right, these 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as you go, preach, saying this, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Now, we preached through that, like I said, it's been several months ago now. But so when we preached on that and studied through that, we discovered what was the point. That Jesus is offering the kingdom to Israel. Preach, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. So he's already sent them out. So you can turn back to Matthew 15. So what is the Lord doing in Matthew 15? He is going to areas where he has not been yet, and he is offering the kingdom to these people. He's going to the lost sheep of Israel. You say, well, Brother Dan, what is the point? The point is his appointment by the Father is to go to Israel first. Now, we know that he witnessed to a Samaritan woman in the beginning of his ministry. Yeah, no problem with that. His ministry changed. No problem with that. That's not a big deal. It's really not. It changed. He's offering the kingdom to Israel here. That's not a big deal, and it doesn't compromise anything about God or the ministry at all. So his appointment, we notice her claim. Now, this is I know I keep saying this is important, but man, the more I studied this is so deep. Now, when she declared that Jesus was Lord, the Son of David, she is declaring that Jesus is her Lord, that he is her King. Have mercy on me, O Lord, thou Son of David. In this statement, she is claiming, you are my Lord and you are my King. But isn't that a good thing, though, right? I mean, she's declaring he is her Lord and he is her King. Is that a good thing? Yes, it is. But the problem is that she had no right to make that claim. Why? Because she's a Gentile and not a Jew. Christ was the king to the Jewish people. No, yes, he's going to bring all the Gentiles in. We have no problem with that. Yes, it's coming later. But who is he the king of? The king of the Jews. As a Gentile, she has no right, no claim on Jesus as her king. None. And although in that land, although it was Israel's, it was under Gentile rule, which means that Jesus was not king of that land yet. You say, but isn't he God? Yeah, sure he is. I know that. But as the king who comes in and conquers, that land belongs to Israel, but who's in authority over it? The Romans. It's the same thing with the Middle Eastern area at that time. It was under Gentile rule. So Christ is going to this area. This Gentile woman is making claim to him. You are your Lord and you're my King. You're the Son of David. No, I'm not. And because I'm not, I don't have to listen to you. Now that's pretty strong. I get it. What? Again, though, what's the point? That Christ was going to the Jews first. Matthew is telling us the story. Why? Hey, Jewish people that are rejecting Jesus, your Messiah was ignoring this Gentile woman in order to help you, and you turn around and reject him. This is the force behind what Matthew is writing. Notice we see her claim, but then his commission. What is his commission? Again, he tells us, I'm not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I am being sent to them. This is what God has sent me to do. He has sent me to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He was not sent to Gentiles in that area, but to the Jews. And so she is being ignored by the Lord, not because not because her daughter is possessed, or because she smells funny, or because she is whatever. She is being ignored and rejected because she is not a part of the covenanted people of God. You say, but that doesn't sound like my God. Turn to Ephesians chapter number 2. We need to see who our God is. Now, we do know this, things have changed now because of Christ. And because of Jesus Christ now, and we know ultimately, at the end of the day, Gentiles are going to be welcomed in. But at this point in the ministry of Jesus, okay? Now, Ephesians chapter number 2. Wherefore remember that ye, being in time past Gentiles in the flesh. Notice this, he's talking about how they were Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hand. So he says, you were called this by the Jews. You're a bunch of Gentiles, you're uncircumcised, but keep reading verse 12, that at that time ye were without Christ. Now, when he says without Christ here, this word without, okay, so I have this coffee mug, right? It's in my hands. Okay, I put it down. I can say, I am without a coffee cup. No, that's not what it means. It means without, outside of. That's why in Ephesians 1, when he says that we were ordained and predestined to be in Christ, it doesn't mean that we're in Him, but that we are actually in Him. Here we are without Christ. Christ is, so let's say Jesus Christ is, so we have coffee in this mug. If I poured the coffee out, the coffee is without the mug. It's outside of it. But now we are in Christ in Ephesians 1:4, right? So that at that time you were without Christ, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope, and without God, outside of God in the world. But now in Christ Jesus, ye who were sometimes were far off are made nigh by the blood of Christ. Okay, now we can turn back to Matthew 15. Now, why am I reading that? I'm reading that so that you understand this Gentile woman is without the covenants. She's out of the promises. She has no hope. None. Of course, we know apart from Christ. All right, so his appointment, this claim, she's making a claim. She has no right to this. His commission. Now, notice her acceptance, though. But something is about to change for this woman. She is being denied an audience. She's being denied having an audience with the king by the king. The king is denying her access. The king has told her no. The king is ignoring this Gentile. And it's like, man, come on, Lord, show some compassion. Help us out. Help. Of course, we know that he is. But notice her acceptance. So, notice number one, her worship of him. So, and this is, we'll just read and we can learn what things are. Then came she and worshiped him, saying, Lord, help me. Now, this is what's amazing about worship. Now, how often the idea of worship that we have, right? The idea of worship that sometimes we have is we come to church and we raise our hands and we sing songs and we get the holy goosebumps, and everything is good. I love it. I have no problem with that. But we think that that's worship. And it is worship. But is she doing that here? No. Is she throwing up her hands? No. Is she singing songs? No. What is she doing? Now, the word, we don't see it, but we can get this picture. She is, in all likelihood, throwing herself down at the feet of Jesus, saying, Lord, help me. Notice her worship. So what is worship? Worship is me seeing Him for who He is and myself for who I am. And that is this: He is all there is and I am nothing. I need Him. here, this woman, she's bowing down. Well, I say that. I don't want to read into it. But this woman is coming to him. Whether she's physically throwing herself down at the feet of Christ, we don't know. But mentally, she's throwing herself down. And the Bible describes describes her worship. She declared that she needed help and that he was the only one that could help. She saw herself for who she was and saw him for who he is, the one that can help. So she came, worshiped him. So notice her worship. She simply sees herself for who she is and sees him as he is. And, Lord, the Son of David, you're the only one that can help me. I need help. We're going to see something here. This worship, we're going to see something else. It goes even deeper. She accepts who she is. That's very powerful. But the reason I want you to see this is why she's accepted. Now we're going to find out God answers her prayer. The Lord heals her daughter. Why? A part of it is it's her worship. She sees herself for who she is and sees him for who he is. This claim, you're my king and you're my Lord. No, I am not. Oh God, Lord, I just need help. Okay, I may not have a claim to you, but you are all and I need you. Secondly, notice his words to her. This is tough. But he answered, Lord, help me. So then he looks at her the first time that he speaks to her, and this is what he says: it is not meet, it's not right for me to take the children's bread and to cast it to dogs. Whew, wow, that's tough. Although she turns and worships the Lord, truly worships him, Matthew tells us, he is still giving reasons why he's not helping. And this is very brutal. This is not a parent who says no and then changes their minds within a few minutes. I got to thinking about this. This is truly a spiritual smackdown. If there ever was one. Lord, Son of David, King of Israel, my daughter is vexed. Guys, can you get him to help me? Please, can you get him to help me? Lady, go away. No, my daughter's help. Can you get him to help? Lady, leave us alone. We're going somewhere. Please, just get his attention. All right, Lord, please get this woman away from us. She's driving us crazy. Listen, hey guys, I'm going to the lost sheep of Israel. That's where I've been going, or that's where I've been sent to, and that's where I'm going. Lord, maybe she runs out in front of him, I don't know. Gets his attention. Lord, help me. He looks at her and says, it is not meet. It's not right to take what belongs to the children, to take their food, to take that loaf of bread and to throw it to a bunch of dogs. Whew. That's brutal. I don't care who you are. That's tough. I mean, this is not, this isn't, okay, if you saw somebody do that, you would say, you need to act like Jesus, right? Okay? I would say, what are you doing, man? You're not acting like Jesus a whole lot right here. Now, what does he say is not meet, it's not proper? To cast it to the dogs. Now, the word dog right here is like little dog, like a little puppy dog, in the house. And the word to cast means to throw it out. And so the Lord is calling her a little dog, a little dog. Now, this is not new to the Gentiles. Now, to us, this is inflammatory language. Sure, this is triggering language today, right? You're triggering me. But this is not new to Gentiles. The Gentiles knew that the Jews saw them as dogs. And a lot of the Gentiles saw the Jews the same way. It's a very derogatory term, right? They knew the Jews saw them as dogs. They didn't particularly like the Jews either. So so he is revealing to her what she is. Just a dog in the eyes of the Jews. Now, this is powerful, but notice her witness to him. And this is an amazing statement. What does she say? She said, truth, Lord. yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. What does she do? She responds by saying, "You're right. You're right. In your eyes, and in the eyes of the Jews, and in the eyes of you as the king of Israel, I am nothing but a little dog. The dogs don't get what belongs to the children. You're right. You're right. You are the king of Israel. You are to go to them. You meet their needs. You respond to them. You see, yes, you're right." And so she continues by agreeing with him that she is, in fact, sure, a dog in their eyes. And she even agrees that he and that they are their master. She says, "Yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table." You're right. But listen to what she says. And as I was studying this, I mean, I was, and I know that I'm not like a big crier or nothing. I mean, I am emotional, but I just don't cry. But as I was studying this, I can see this woman, tears in her eyes, and she says, "Yes, but Lord, even the dogs get crumbs. You're right. I'm not going to get a full loaf of bread. I don't want the full loaf of bread. But if you'll just sweep the crumbs off the table, that's all I'm asking for. That's all I want." And she is agreeing, "Yes, I'm a dog, and yes, you are my master. You, Lord, are my master. But please just give me some crumbs." That's powerful. Very moving. And notice his acknowledgement. What allows her to receive the blessing from God? Now, what does he say in verse 28? "Then Jesus answered and said unto her, O woman, great is thy faith. Be it unto thee even as thou wilt. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour." Now, Gentiles that are reading and hearing about this king, and because we know by the time Matthew is writing this, the door has been thrown open to Gentiles through the Jews as far as coming into the church and Christ and salvation. And by that point, it is. But through this is even a further witness of Christ receiving Gentiles, right? Yes, but was it her faith? It wasn't works. It's not changing, okay? It was nothing but faith. Great is your faith. So, but what changed? Well, nothing changed. But why is Jesus doing this? I mean, he's doing it, he simply says, because of her faith. Now, so turn back to Isaiah, though. I want you to see this verse very quickly. I want you to see this verse because I believe that the Lord is showing this about this woman. And there's other passages that we could read, but Isaiah 57 in verse 15, I was reading this passage. And there's other places in other verses that show this. And that God hears, hears a humble cry. And that's what we're seeing here. In Isaiah 57 and verse 15, he says, For thus saith the high and lofty one that inhabiteth eternity. What a powerful statement that is. Whose name is holy. I dwell in the high and holy place with him also that is of a contrite and humble spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble and to revive the heart of the contrite ones. Of course, contrite is those that are broken over their sin. But notice where he's going to revive the spirit of the humble. And there's other verses that seem to speak of this. So we can turn back to Matthew 15. And so the Lord is helping her. In Isaiah, he lets us know that he helps those that are of humble spirit. Notice the revelation of faith. So notice what he says, O woman, great is thy faith. There's something about faith that is revealed here. And what is it about faith? Faith is more than simply, this is going to sound odd to say this, we know okay, the simple definition of faith is believing, right? We're believing. We have faith in the chair and we sit down and it holds us up. I believe this, and so because I believe A, I do B. Okay? And we know that that's all a part of faith. But I want to say something. If this woman would have accepted her condition as a Gentile, that she's just going to have to wait and she's not going to get the answer, do you know that she still would have been living by faith? Yes. Why? Because she was accepting the word of God. God says to wait, I'm going to have to believe it. My daughter's going to have to be tormented. I don't understand it. I don't know why, but I'm just going to have to wait. There's still faith is involved. Why again? Because she's accepting what the Lord has said. But it is deeper than just, so that's the point. Faith is deeper than simply accepting what God says. What does she do? What does she do? What does her faith cause her to do? It causes her to appeal to the character of God. Lord, have mercy on me. Lord, help me. Lord, I'm a dog, give me some crumbs. She is appealing to the character of God, that God is merciful, that God is compassionate, that God will hear. But not only does her faith cause her to appeal to the character of God, but it causes her to appeal to her very own condition. And what is that? That she needs help. Regardless of what the Lord says, she is just going to keep on pressing through anyway. I know you keep telling me no, but God, I need help. I know you're saying this, and God, I know it. But God, I'm going to keep pushing through. I am going to keep moving towards you. Faith, I'm not leaving. And faith is more than believing in something that cannot be seen. Faith is taking what we know and what we can understand and then living accordingly to that. And that's what she does. I don't know how much this woman knew about the Old Testament. She knew enough that the king of Israel was the son of David. Again, how much she knows, we don't know. But she understands that enough. She understands and she sees Jesus as that king who can minister, who can perform miracles, and that can help. And so regardless of the no, she pushes through. And so we have a revelation of faith, and that is this, is that faith is deeper than simply, I just believe in God. That's great, but your faith should do something. It should cause you to continually move to God, never stopping. Faith here also, and when you go back, and I know we don't have time for this, but in Matthew 8 and verse 10, he tells the centurion, I've not seen a greater faith in all of Israel. That's within the context of the centurion understanding that Jesus was sent by God and that he is under the authority of God. There's a lot of things there, and he's submitting to the authority of Christ. She's doing the same thing here. And so that's what faith does. And so we see that revelation of faith, but then there's the response to faith. And what happens? Whether we necessarily maybe agree with this, like this, or whatever, the Lord changed his mind. The Lord changed his mind. If this woman would have stopped, turned around, went home, guess what? Her daughter would have remained possessed, and the Lord would have kept going and would have preached to the people in Israel. Why? Because that's where he was sent. And so what does the Lord do? He changed his mind. Now, I know some people don't like that. That's blasphemy to some people. You know, there's different terms for stuff. You know, there's open theism, you know, that God really doesn't know the future. He only knows the future because he can make it happen. Well, that's not what the Bible reveals. But then there's theistic determinists, that God knows all things and everything that happens is going to happen and nothing can change that. Well, here Matthew reveals that God changed his mind. So what does this mean? It shows us in principle that we can pray and say, God, change. Now, does this mean that God is always going to change what he does? No, it doesn't always mean that. But what it does show us is that we can continue to pray and pray and pray and pray and pray. God ignored her. Christ ignored her. Christ says, no, no, no. But Lord, I just want some crumbs. I am nothing. I'm nothing to you. I know. I just need help. Give me just some crumbs. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to leave. I'm going to pester you and pester you and pester you. I'm going to follow you around. And the Lord turns and says, you've got a great faith, woman. You've got a great faith. And because of this faith, I'm going to grant their desire that you have. So why does he say no to her? He says no to her dispensationally, and that's a big word, because at this moment in time, he's dealing with only Israelites and Jewish people. That's why he says no. He ignores her. I'm going to Israel right now. The lost sheep of Israel, I'm offering them the kingdom still. I'm not coming to you. I'm not your king. You cannot make a claim to me. But because of her humility, because of her faith, because she appeals to his character and appeals to her condition, God stops and does something for this woman, especially for her. Weren't there other people from Tyre and Sidon that came to God to be healed? Yeah. Did he heal them? Yes, he did. He did. So why is he telling this woman no? Because he was going at that moment in time to minister to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That's why. Was he excluding the Gentiles at this time? At this particular time, yeah, he was. It's okay. He was excluding the Gentiles so that Israel would receive him as king, so then he may embrace all Gentiles in all the world. That's the process. That's what's revealed in the Old Testament and even in the New Testament. So can we change the mind of God? I think that we can. I think that we can pray. And I believe we see that with Abraham. I know people, well, Jesus knew what he was going to do because he was God. Listen, I realize there's a lot of things that we don't understand. But we have to look at what the Bible reveals to us. And what the Bible reveals to us is that Jesus was not going to heal her daughter, but he did because of her faith and action of continual prayer. And so we see here in this story, Matthew's, now we'll look at Mark's, we're going to look at Mark's next week. Mark doesn't go into as much detail with her. We'll look at Mark just because I want to get his perspective. But here we see the woman that wouldn't be denied. I want to encourage you as Christians to pray, to keep praying. Continue to have faith. Continue to move to God. Appeal to his character. Appeal to who he is, but also appeal to our condition that God, I am desperately in need of help. And rest on him. And this is the faith. This is the faith. And I know there's more to that. And I'm going to meditate on that more for myself because I want to learn more about what this great faith is. And so thank y'all for that are here coming. I know we went a little long tonight, 50-something minutes. So thank y'all for listening. I hope and pray that you at least understand the passage more, see some things that we as individuals can work on, can grow in, and can develop in. We'll go to the Lord in a word of prayer. May the Lord bless you this week.